another edition of Stranger Thinking Media, where we bring you the gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of a modern world. So, stay tuned. We have an awesome show for you today.
The United States military finds itself in even more turmoil and possibly another war. We also are dealing with the Russia-Ukraine situation. Even though the media is not talking about it, it is still rolling forward, and we are still dealing with the Israel-Hamas situation. To help make sense of all of that, I have former CIA Larry Johnson. Larry, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Good to be with you. Hamas used to be pretty isolated. They didn't have support. They were despised by the Saudis and the Egyptians. Now they've become sympathetic figures. The leadership of Egypt and Saudi Arabia may still not have a good taste in their mouth about Hamas, but the man in the street in those countries most certainly is backing Hamas, and they're insisting that their government come along. So, you know, it's making Hamas stronger, not weaker. That's what's so crazy about it.
Yeah. One of my worries was that this was going to wake up other Muslim nations and that we would see this massive war in the region.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that yet, but we are starting to see the Houthis from Yemen make threats, make attacks. There's a lot of tension in the Red Sea right now with one of the heads of the Houthis saying, "We will attack your military ships." Can you update my community on what's going on with the Houthis? Who are they and what's going on?
Okay, so let's think of the of the Houthis. The Houthis are sort of like Mormons, and the reigning Yemeni people are like the Catholic Church. In other words, you have a religious difference that's pretty significant there, where one believes in continuing revelation from God, and the other one has said, hey, you know, God's spoken and we've got all the truth here. Okay. So this war that's brewed between the Houthis are a Shia sect.
Okay.
And the war between the Shias and the Sunni characters that adhere to the Saudi version of Islam, it's been going on for about 1,000 years. So it's not recent, okay? They've got some long-standing grudges. The civil war between them got very intense 8 years ago, and they've been fighting basically for 8 years. And so during that time, Saudi Arabia was supporting the Sunni government, and Iran was providing support to the Shia, the Houthis. And during that time, the Houthis were firing missiles at Saudi Arabia. And we deployed the Patriot missile battery to Saudi Arabia, and it didn't stop the missiles. Okay, so the Houthis were able to hit targets inside Saudi Arabia. So when this war broke out now between Hamas and Israel, the Houthis, who are now the government, spoke out and said, we're with the Palestinians 110%, and to show that we're backing them, we're going to close down any ship going to Israel. And by God, they've hijacked a couple. They've sunk some. They're hitting them with missiles. And so all the major shipping companies in the world have now said, oh, okay, we're not sailing through the Red Sea. We'll just go around Africa and take the long way around. So this is having a really significant economic impact on Israel. And yes, what the Houthis are doing in terms of attacking ship and international shipping lanes is against international law. And a country the United States would be well entitled to go try to stop that. But there's the problem. How do you stop it? And what we've discovered, even though we've got all these naval vessels there in the region, an aircraft carrier, and then the aircraft carrier has destroyers and cruisers around it to provide a screen. That they carry missile systems, Aegis missile systems, as an example, that can fire at incoming threats. But big problem here. Number one, the the Yemenis are firing drones that cost about $2,000. Every Aegis missile that the United States fires is $2 million. The other day, the Houthis attacked one of these destroyers with 14 drones. And the ship claimed they shot them all down. Okay, you know, you're a math guy. 14 times 2 million is so all of a sudden we're up to $28 million to shoot down $28,000 worth of drones. And those ships don't have an infinite capability. They don't have an endless supply of these missiles down in the hold. Oh no, they carry about a little over 90, maybe upwards to 100. Once they fire them, they have to go back to a port somewhere to refuel, to reload, because somebody thought Bill Clinton. Let's blame this one on. It's true to blame it on Clinton and his Department of Defense back in the early 90s. Decided that instead of having a U.S. Navy that had what was known as expeditionary capability, that's what we had in World War II. That meant when these naval fleets were out at sea, tagging along behind them was one ship that was filled with nothing but oil so it could give fuel. And there was another couple of ships that had nothing but, they had food, they had ammunition, they had artillery shells. Their entire job was to show up, resupply the fighting ship so that it could stay in the battle. And during Clinton, they said, we don't need that anymore. We'll just build these bases around the world. And that way we don't have to have the expense of those ships. So we got rid of submarine tenders and destroyer tenders. So now every time one of these destroyers, after it fires 90 rockets, it's got to head back to port. If it heads back to port, that means the aircraft carrier has got to go with it, because it will have no protection. So what this means is if I'm the Houthis, I can do math too. I'm sure they can. Fire 3,000 drones at these ships, force them to use up all of their ammunition, so then they have to withdraw. At that point, America looks weak because we are. And then we're not even talking about the other problem that was exposed in Ukraine. Our missile production facilities in this country cannot make enough missiles to keep up with what we've used. They're looking at 3-year backlogs in some cases. So we no longer have an industrial capability like we had in World War II, where stuff could be churned out in a week. And we're building airplanes in 2 days, for Pete's sake. And so this thing is now getting overly complicated. And then where do you hit these guys? Because they don't have fixed missile bases. They're mobile. They drive around and they hide. And so then we've got to go up and find them, which is what was happening the other day when we had a Predator. It's called the Reaper, MQ-9 Reaper, only cost $30 million. And the Yemenis shot it down. Boom. Well, that was one of the things we're using to try to find out where their missiles were located. And I guess the Reaper found one, and then it got shot right up its tailpipe.
Yeah, found one right in the side. Oh gosh. So we're using $30 million Reaper drones to find people that are driving $2,000 drones. This is what's interesting is it's asymmetrical warfare on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Usually the United States has the asymmetrical advantage, but in this case, financially speaking, resources, we're at a disadvantage,
right,
to this group. Now, you said that the Houthis, they used to be like a rebel group, but now they've taken over the government.
They basically won the war. Now, the other thing that happened was, remember, as a result of the rapprochement between China and Russia, when Russia and China came together as a result of U.S. pressure and sanctions, then the Russians and Chinese worked with the Saudis, and the Chinese succeeded in brokering a peace agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Well, once they got that agreement in place, this war in Yemen basically stopped. There's been an occasional border incursion here and there, but not like it was before. And remember, before, the United States was involved in helping the Yemeni government kill Houthis. We were using Predator drones to try to find and destroy them. And again, in that case, we ended up killing some civilians ourselves. So this thing is real complicated. What fascinates me is the attacks by the Yemenis should have justified a military response by the United States already, and it hasn't. And I think one of the reasons it has not is they've come to this realization that we're going to look pretty foolish if we start a military operation and then have to suspend it immediately because we've run out of missiles. And in the process, let's not forget that the Yemenis have some Iranian anti-ship missiles that are quite capable of sinking our ships. If think of the reaction that will happen if they sink a ship or two.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Americans are going to be shocked, and then they're going to demand action. Man, we got to do more. And this is like climbing into a mud pit that's been filled with water. You get in, it's not easy to get out.